So hi there.
Hey.
I'm here with a very good friend of mine, Jamie, who I've known for a long time, and very, very inspirational person as well. So he's got a story to tell, and then we're hoping to delve a little bit deeper into the decisions that he made to improve his life. So first off, just tell us a little bit about your story, what happened, and where it went.
Yeah, so I developed a chronic pain condition about the age of 9. So I was sort of walking around Disney World, and then all of a sudden my feet collapsed from under me. My feet were really, really sore, and then when I got back to the UK, I went back to the doctors and said, what's wrong? And after lots of years of operations, they eventually diagnosed me with a condition called complex regional pain syndrome, CRPS, which is effectively just a really difficult nerve pathway problem. So it meant that I didn't have any movement in my right foot at all. It was purple, I couldn't move it, I couldn't get it wet, couldn't wear shoes or socks, and as such I was a wheelchair user. So from about the age of 16, 17, I went to the doctors and I said, look, I'm fed up of this condition, I've had a whole load of operations, what can you do? And they said, we can do this, this and this, and potentially amputation is on the cards. And I said, what do you mean on the cards? I've had this many operations, I'm so desperate. I said, I want amputation now. And eventually, kind of after 6 years of persevering through talking with them, I had it done 2 years ago now, and started walking June 2 years ago.
Wow.
And subsequently now start running and doing all sorts of stuff I love.
Living your life, finally.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So basically you took a decision to change something in your life that is kind of off the scale, massive, 100% irreversible.
Yeah.
And that for most people would give them a really, it would negatively impact their quality of life. So how do you go about making that decision and knowing that that's the right decision for you?
I mean, at the time, it didn't really feel like a decision, to be honest. It didn't really feel like an active decision of, I'm going to, amputate my leg because this will change my life. It was a case of, I don't like where I am right now. I took a step back and said, I'm in a lot of pain. I'm not sleeping very well. I have no energy. I'm on a ridiculous amount of medication. What can I do in order to change this? And I think it's the same with anything. It's like, if you don't like your room set up, you think, well, what do I not like? I don't like my sofa. I'm going to look at getting a new sofa.
Yeah.
And effectively, it was the same with my foot. I didn't like my foot. It wasn't working. So therefore, it was just a case of getting a new one and finding something that did work.
Yeah. Okay. So going a little bit deeper, what actually goes through your mind when you're trying to make a decision like that? Do you think about not having your foot and having regrets? Or?
At first, it was just a simple case of, I want it off. And to be honest, I didn't think about it. I didn't make there was no decision making at all. It was just, I'm fed up of this thing, get rid of it. And then the decision making process started. So it was a case of looking at obviously the pros and cons of it, looking at not only how I would feel, but how others would feel, how others would react. And with the amputee community specifically, people have two different kind of stories. You have the success stories where people are being really, really active. You see the Paralympians on the TV, and you have the really sort of difficult people who, I've had my amputation, my life is over.
Yeah.
So there's a really wide range of people, and my decision really based on, am I going to become this kind of a person that's really struggling, or am I going to become this kind of a person? And with my condition, there was no knowing. Worst case scenario, I could be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life in worse pain, and I would end up being here. So if I ended up being here, how would I feel about that? How would people treat me? And then if I ended up here, what would I do then? And how would I react based on that level of activity?
Yeah.
So I just kind of methodically went through and said, how would I feel about this? And actually practically, I tried really hard to look at the people in the middle, because the people in the middle quite often are just not putting things on social media about how they're feeling, because actually they just get on with their life. Yes, they have a sore leg every now and then, but actually it's just them cracking on and having jobs. So I really tried to research that, because I thought that's probably where I'm going to fit, hopefully. But I would be okay with this side or this side.
Okay.
So I just kind of wrote everything down. I'm a real writer.
Yeah.
So I just kind of, lots of mind maps and lots of creation to see how I would feel.
So what was going through your mind in terms of, if it turned out like the worst case scenario, what sort of things were you worried about, and how do you think you'd have coped with that?
I mean, I was worrying about sort of being in more pain.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a lot of pain, you can't think about being in more pain, because that concept doesn't exist. So I tried to think, well, what would actually be more pain? What would that entail? You know, would I not be able to sleep? So I read this story about a lady who has the same condition I had, and she has to be in a chamber 24/7 because she just, apparently the air pressure in there, it sort of regulates her her condition to a point where she can survive. And I was like, okay, well, that's the worst case scenario. I really, really hope that doesn't happen. But to be honest, I'm a real believer in positive mental attitude, in terms of that if you keep yourself active, if you keep yourself thinking positively, the likelihood of that happening is pretty low. And I kind of looked at all of the, you know, I was constantly being hounded by surgeons as to, you're not going to get, you know, once you have your amputation, if you ever have it, if you ever find a surgeon that's going to do it, you're not going to be in any better position. You're going to be in a lot worse pain. You're going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. And to be honest, it was just a bit of a, well, what's worst case, you know, worst case scenario, I'm still in pain, I'm still not sleeping, but I've got an opportunity to do this. The opportunity cost was so much higher, and I thought, I can't not do this. It was just kind of a little bit of a click moment. I just said, I need to do this for myself, because otherwise I'm not going anywhere in life, I'm not progressing. I need to change.
What were the reactions of friends and family? And
I actually lost quite a lot of friends from it, unfortunately. They didn't believe that I was doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
I think because of the person that I am, I've always been really kind of strong-headed. So if I had a problem, so like for example, when my foot was still in pain, I was still doing judo at your judo club, because
I remember.
I was in a lot, like I would finish my judo session and I would go home and I would cry every evening because I was in that much pain, and I would try and get up the next morning and I would still be in pain, but I still kept doing it because I wanted to keep myself active. I wanted to try and prove to myself, yes, I can do this. And then it was almost like, this is too much. I can't keep going like this. And I think because I was that kind of person that kept going, my friends really struggled because they didn't see, some of my closest friends saw that struggle, but my best friend at the time, she didn't see it at all. We were very much kind of like online friends that we would meet up with very occasionally, and she just said, like, I don't believe in you. I don't believe this is a thing. I don't believe it's a condition, because actually even doctors don't know what the condition is. They don't know how to solve it. My mum really struggled with it, to be honest. She thought I had some kind of psychological disorder, and my dad said that the concept of me choosing to have my amputation was really difficult for him. He said if I would have been in a motorbike accident, he would have accepted it in a flash. But the fact that his child was actually wanting to do this, he really struggled with it. But it was a case of, actually, I just want to show you that, okay, this is a decision that I'm making as an adult, and I know the consequences. I've talked to many, many people about them, so I'm going to go through with it, and if you support me, that's absolutely amazing. If you're not going to support me, this is the change that I need to make for my life. So that was fun.
Did they try and dissuade you at all, or did they just let you know their thoughts and let you get on with it?
My dad was very much like letting me get on with it. He didn't even tell me his thoughts. He just said, I'm struggling with it, don't want to talk about it. So I kind of respected that. I mean, I was living on my own, so it wasn't that bad. Whereas my mum kind of went the other way. So I was meant to have my operation in July, and the day of my operation, the surgeon came in and said, yeah, all good to go, put your gown on, get ready. And then 10 minutes before it was meant to happen, he then came in again and said, no, we're not going to do it. Because when he came in the first time, there were quite a few different things. He just didn't believe it was the right thing to do. But my mum went out of the room when they said get ready to go, and phoned my dad and said, you know, he's about to go down, kind of thing. And then shortly after that, she started crying. And then of course the doctor said, why are you crying? And she said, I don't believe it's the right thing. So actually that really hindered my chances of having my operation. And it was cancelled on that day, and it took 10 weeks then to be rescheduled because of some actions that she had taken. So, and even now, you know, 2 years later, she's still really struggling with it. She won't look at my stump. She won't, if I say, for example, I do a lot of mud runs, right? So I'll go on a mud run and I'll say, right, I ran 10 miles today. I've got a sore back because I've been doing lots of obstacles. I pulled a muscle here, and she'll say, oh, that sounds a bit sore. I go out for a walk get my stump wet and say, oh, I've got this blister, this tiny blister on my stump. It hurts a little bit. Oh no, oh, you can't have a blister on it. And it completely exaggerated.
Yeah.
But she just doesn't know what it's like. You know, she doesn't feel comfortable.
There's obviously some psychological thing still in her head trying to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, she's never said to me, oh, you've done really well given your amputation, or you've never done really, I'm proud of you for that. You know, she's never kind of said that. But
That's
I think
tough.
it is tough.
Yeah.
But I think she's always been the kind of person that, I think as any parent, is that you want your child to be perfect. And some parents accept that children are perfect. But I think she, along with other parents, have this image of, this is what my child needs to be perfect. And in her mind, I was going against what was perfection, actively going against that.
Yeah.
You know, I was actively saying, I don't want a leg, which I imagine was quite difficult for her.
So, having had that happen, and having the operation cancelled once, I'm just trying to think, how did that affect your attitude towards it? What I'm trying to get into is, you know, when people sort of get into the fight for the sake of it, do you feel that influenced your decision, i.e., I'm more determined now just because they said no, as opposed to necessarily for the right reasons?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think there was a stage when they were talking about doing other operations between the cancellation date and my actual amputation date, and to that point I was just like, I've had enough. Literally, I'm at the end of my tether. I just want the amputation now. I think I'm the kind of person that if I set my mind on something, I absolutely have to do it, pretty much. You know, I said, I'm going to get a new cat, and a week later I had a new cat, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's just the kind of person I am. But I think that I definitely have, because I'd done all the research beforehand, and I'd spoken to so many people, and I felt like I jumped through so many hoops to get to there. Because even before the surgeon agreeing to do it, I had to have 2 years worth of counselling. I had to visit loads of prosthetic centres, I had to talk to loads of amputees, so I had to do that, as well as all the other research that I'd done on top of that. And I thought, how much time have I spent, how much energy have I spent doing this? It's too late to turn back. Don't get me wrong, if they said, we'll give you this one pill that will solve it all, absolutely. But it was just the point of no return, where it's just a case of, I need this done, because this is the path that I have taken, and this is the journey that I'm doing.
So in a way, your stubbornness to have something done is an advantage, because I'd imagine a lot of people would then have, as things are getting close, we get worried about something and possibly change their mind. But you did all the research, you knew that this was, you know, really the only way forward for you, and so you were just determined to do it.
Yeah.
And if you weren't that sort of person, then you might have changed your mind and still be struggling now, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't, you know, the night before my amputation, I was still really petrified. You know, I wasn't, you know, out of my mind, this is the best thing to do, I'm not going to worry about it. I was still realistic. But absolutely, that's the kind of person I am.
What was going through your mind the night before?
Night before the cancellation, actually.
Well, either,
that was the most nerve-wracking part, I think. The night before it was meant to be happening. And I remember I was doing a documentary with the BBC at the time about the whole process. And as part of that, I had to take some footage. You know, this is how I'm feeling. And so actually, even now I have that footage to look back on, which is really strange to see the space that I was in. And I was just in this really surreal kind of headspace of like, this is happening. You know, this is 6 years worth of fighting, and this is happening. And I think a lot of people in life go searching for that one thing. You know, it will be okay when I've had this, when I've had my amputation, when I get married, when I buy a house. And then once you buy a house, what happens? You have to live in it. You know, you have to get on with your life. I have to live with this amputation, and what happens if the pain comes back? What happens if I don't like the look of my stump? You know, silly things. How am I going to be when I'm 80 years old, when I don't have a leg? Well, actually, some of those things, how is anybody when they're 80 years old? You know, so I started to try and break it down, and I kind of really enjoyed having that space to myself, just to really have a think, because I did all my initial research, and I was like, this is the journey that I'm going on, and then I didn't really think too much about that journey, and I didn't think what if and what if, because actually I already did the research of what if. But the night before was that really time for me to say, actually, what if again, and just reconsider everything, which was a really nice space to be in, because actually it made me appreciate that this was the right thing for me, and it was going to give me the life that I wanted. Hopefully.
Yeah, great. Have you heard of the condition body integrity identity disorder. Before you answer that, just for people watching, that's they don't quite know what causes it, but it's a condition, if you like, where people feel that their limb just doesn't belong to them for whatever reason, or they don't like it, they're uncomfortable with it, and they want an amputation. It can be sight or hearing as well.
Yeah.
So, have you ever heard of that?
I have.
You
Indeed,
have,
yeah.
okay. And was there at any point, was anyone suggesting that maybe you had that condition?
Yeah, quite a few people,
Okay.
actually.
Who?
Doctors, a lot of doctors. Not necessarily that specific condition, but in terms of, I think it's in your mind, you don't actually have anything wrong with you. And I think, even myself, I thought, do I have that? Because with CRPS, you look at scans, you look at every test that you can do, and it comes up normal. The only thing that is different is the appearance and the feel, which is actually very difficult to describe. And especially when, you know, my foot would be purple all the time, but if I had a hospital appointment, the night, sort of 2 days before, I would stop doing anything. You know, I'd sit in bed for 2 days so that I was ready to get to the hospital. Because if my foot was hit the day before I was meant to go to hospital, there's no way I would make it to that appointment because I'd be in too much pain. So I thought, well, by the time I turn up to appointments, my foot would look normal. I wouldn't be in as much pain. So doctors would be like, what's going on? You look absolutely fine. And my mum definitely thought I had that. She said, I don't believe you. I don't think it's, you know, I don't think there's a physical problem. Which was actually quite difficult. Yeah. Because you've got a condition that nobody can actually put on paper. I didn't actually get diagnosed with CRPS until I was sort of 19, 20. By that point, it was like, okay, yeah, we've given you this diagnosis, but it's kind of pointless because you've actually had it for like 15 years. So it was a little bit annoying, should we say, but you know, I imagine if for people with BID, it's a very difficult condition, but it certainly wasn't me.
Yeah. And how did people saying that to you, how did that affect your decision making? Did it make you more determined?
I think I researched it, obviously, to check what it was, and to see whether I felt like I had it. But the pain is real, you know, and actually as soon as I started expressing to people, as soon as I took off that brave face of everything is okay, I'm going to show everybody that I'm okay, actually I'm going to show people now that I'm not okay, and really see me struggle so that I can almost validate my decision. Because a lot of it was trying to validate the choices that I had taken. Of, you know, I'm going to amputate my foot because my foot is painful. You don't see that my foot is painful, so I'm going to show you that my foot is painful. But then there's that thing of, oh, is he just showing us because he has this disorder, or does he actually have it? So there was a little bit of trying to balance that. But I think people kind of got, especially by the time they see my medication records, they kind of got the idea I was in quite a bit of pain, and it was real.
That must be quite difficult as well, because you feel like you're managing other people's expectations and not just your own.
Absolutely.
And you're in pain anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's like the 2 years worth of counselling I had to have. The first 2 sessions, you know, the counsellor said, why are you here, kind of thing. And I said, well, I'm having my foot amputated, hopefully, and as part of the process I need 2 years worth of counselling. I need to talk about it. And they were like, okay, cool, how do you feel about it? And I was like, well, I'm ready. I've told everybody about it. I've talked about the consequences. So literally the first 2 sessions were us talking about that. And after the second session, she said, okay, well, it's clear that you know amputation is the right thing for you. You've clearly thought about everything. I would be happy to sign you off, but you need 2 years. Do you want to talk about anything else?
Wow.
And it was literally just 2 years of talking about random stuff. Yeah. Because I had to tick a box.
Yeah.
But that's just one of the hoops I had to go through.
Do you think your decision would have been affected if you'd have been much older, if you're elderly, in terms of recovery, obviously, learning to walk again?
Yeah, I think the fact that I was younger really helped. But then also in some respects, because I was so young, the doctors didn't take me seriously. So I think if I was the age that I am now, I wouldn't have had to wait 6 years, firstly. I probably would have only had to wait 3 years. But I think if I was a lot older, I don't think they would have amputated. I think they would have just said, you know, get on with your life as much as, you know, it's a case of sort of palliative care kind of thing.
I can obviously only try and imagine how difficult it is to go through something like this and have to make decisions like this. And I've known you for quite a long time, and as you said with the pain you had in my judo classes, I didn't know you were in that much pain. Yeah. It just felt like you were moaning and whinging about, you know, stubbing your toe or something. Yeah. So you've always been so upbeat about various things, and you just got on with things. do you feel you ever hid sort of quite negative feelings like depression or anything like that, and especially afterwards for fear of people saying, well, we told you so? What's been going on inside your head with stuff like that?
Yeah, I think even, forgetting the whole chronic pain thing, as a kid I was always taught everything is okay, everything, just keep your head down, just pretend that everything is okay and you'll believe it. And obviously that's not quite the case. So with the whole pain thing and just having real difficulty with it was a case of I just hid it from everybody because I didn't want to talk about it, or I didn't know who to talk about it. I had a lot of people in my life who said, you can talk to me about anything unless it's something I don't want to talk about, kind of thing. So I did definitely hide how I was feeling. I didn't hide any doubts that I was having with my amputation with my friends, my closest friends, because I knew it was important to discuss those. But I did a lot of internal thinking and I really struggled for some years. I was sort of sectioned a few times just because I was really struggling with a lot of it, and I just had so many other things going on. Because if you think that not only you had chronic pain things going on, you also have A-levels and general relationships and money problems and whatever it is that I was going through, that was also on top of this. And I did hide it, and it really did kind of affect me for quite some time. In terms of afterwards, I wasn't scared anymore about hiding it, because I was a little bit worried about if it was the wrong decision, how I would kind of say to everyone, sorry, I made the wrong decision, I'm still in pain now. But fortunately that didn't need to happen.
So, post-amputation, how's life been?
Rocky. It's been, I've had the most incredible moments of my life, I've had some really difficult bits. So straight after my amputation, I had a massive high. So as soon as I woke up from the operation, I wasn't in any pain at all. My concentration, my energy levels, just straight up. I remember sort of 2 days after being in my wheelchair, just like running around the hospital, like, what do I do with all this energy? I'm not in pain anymore. And then shortly after that, the pain sort of started to set in a little bit, and I had the sort of phantom pain kick in. I went home for a little bit, and then I went to an amputee rehabilitation hospital. And so I had the high from initial, and then back down from the pain being at home, and then back up for hospital, because I was really excited about the concept of walking and rehabilitation, and I was really, really into my fitness. So I thought, great, I'm going to be doing like 8 hours of physical activity every day, it's going to be awesome. And then it kind of went a little bit back down, because my recovery didn't go very well at all. The hospital, although for rehabilitation it's fantastic, they didn't know how to deal with an active young man. So they just kind of were like, oh, go and do some sit-ups in the corner while your stump heals, because my stump was not healing at all. I had a hole in the side of my stump that was 5.5 centimetres deep. So my stump was about that big, and the hole was about that big. So, and they just didn't look after it at all. Lost blood test results, and they kept saying to me, you'll start walking when you stop bleeding, and then when you stop bleeding, when you start walking, you'll then get fitted with a leg this amount of time afterwards. And they initially said to me that I'd be in hospital for about 4 weeks as an inpatient, and I ended up being there for 2 months. And that was simply because they weren't fitting me with a prosthetic leg, or they had fitted me, and then when they amputate your leg, they tell you to move your phantom foot, so it helps with circulation and stump issues. So I was doing that, but obviously because I hadn't moved my calf in such a long time, my calf muscle then grew, so they fitted me with a prosthetic leg, and then my leg was too big for the leg. So then they said, no, we're not going to give you another leg until you have revision surgery, and then we'll refer you to a surgeon, and then they're not going to do this. It was just constant, we're not going to give you a leg, basically. So I left hospital without a leg, and then I was like, what do I do? At this point I didn't have a job. So I was like, do I start working and then have an operation? Do I have an operation, wait for that, then start working? What do I do? I'm in this horrible limbo. So it was really quite difficult. I was really quite low in that stage. And one day I just sort of said, F it, I'm going to buy a leg. So I went to a prosthetic clinic. I went to Blatchford in Basingstoke, and I bought a leg. It's not quite going to Tesco and buying a milkshake, but I got a leg fitted, and the prosthetist said to me, go on 2 crutches for the first week, 1 crutch for the next week, and you should be able to walk unaided after that. Within 3 days I was walking unaided, because by that point my stump had healed a little bit, but I still needed some surgery. But it was just a case of kind of get going. And then shortly after I started walking, I thought, okay, I'm ready to run. And then I got a prosthetic leg. I got a Blade XT running blade, and started running. And it was just like, wow, okay, so I started running in the July, and I had my amputation the September before, and started walking in the June. It was just it just kind of seemed to progress really, really quickly. So that was just an incredible time. And then I had to have my revision surgery, and I went back down a little bit because I couldn't then walk. I was used to walking, used to running, and then was back in a wheelchair. So this January sort of 2018, that whole 2018 was just an incredible year. It was by far, the things that I'm doing now, I never thought I would do at all. I never thought would be possible. I'm running every weekend. I hadn't run really at all as a kid. I've got some amazing friends who know me as an amputee, and being an amputee is very much part of my identity, which is lovely to have that kind of part of me.
You definitely think it was the right thing to do?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, by far the best thing I've ever done.
How has this experience shaped you as a person, and how different are you now from before your amputation, do you think?
I'm a very different person, I think, from that kid who was in a wheelchair, who had sort of self-confidence issues. I view the world completely different now. Even the height difference of being in a wheelchair and now standing up, I'm so much more proud to be alive, proud to be a human, and I'm proud of myself for everything that I've achieved and continue to achieve. And in terms of how it's shaped me, I think it by far has made me a better person. It's really made me appreciate where I am in the world. It's made me appreciate others in the world. And I feel like I now am in this space where I've been through this journey, and it's been really, really difficult, but it's now my chance and my opportunity to help other people get through a journey, whatever that is.
I've seen some of your other videos and very inspirational things that you've been doing, such as the guy that you helped in the wheelchair go around Tough Mudder.
Yeah.
That had me welled up in tears just watching that.
Thanks. That was an incredible journey. That was really cool. I think because I did my first few Tough Mudders in a wheelchair, and it was really, really difficult, and I did it on my own. I didn't do it with a team, and I thought, this is such a cool experience. I just want to be able to show others. So it was just a case of trying to get someone to go and get them through it.
It makes me proud to have you as a friend and see you being able to do stuff like that and turn such a negative experience that you've had in your life to such a positive one. It's just amazing.
Thank you very much.
Looking back now, what, if anything, would you do differently?
So I don't think I'd do anything differently. Some stuff was really difficult, but actually that shaped who I am, so I don't think I'd change anything at all. What
skills do you think you've learnt that are transferable to other people in different situations?
I'd say organisation. I know that's a very strange skill to say. People wouldn't necessarily say that, but the reason I was able to persevere and actually get what I wanted was through organisation. It was a case of, if somebody said to me, I will get back to you by, in 2 weeks' time, I put a date in my diary in 2 weeks' time, and if they hadn't contacted me, I contact them back and say, where's my appointment? It's a case of chasing people continuously, and if you want to get where you want to go in life, that's what you have to do, because people don't want to do that for you. So definitely organisation and perseverance naturally with that, I think, and also communication. I think learning how to deal with people. Different people need different approaches, and you need different approaches depending on how you're feeling, and really being in touch with how you are. And I think those skills, it doesn't matter how you were raised, it doesn't matter where you are in life, those are skills that anybody can pick up and anybody can master. And I think by mastering them, there's no reason that people shouldn't achieve.
So for anyone that's facing a difficult decision, what advice have you got for them?
Look at everything. Look at whatever works for you, whether it's writing down, whether it's an audio clip, whether it's a mind chart, whatever. Look at every single decision that you can make. Look at every single way that any decision is going to impact that major decision. And look at not only how you are going to be thinking about that, how that's going to affect the other people in your life. My amputation affected people in a different way than what I thought, and I didn't take that into account when I was making my decision. But how important is that decision to you? How important is that decision to the people around you, and what impact will that have on your life and their lives? and just take it as a whole. Look at each nitty-gritty bit, but actually look at the situation in a whole. And if you think that the decision is right for you, and in your gut you think it's right for you, then ultimately it probably is. And it's just a case of actually pursuing that journey and that decision for you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, I know you're a cat lover, and I know you just recently acquired a new cat, which,
I
quite
have.
interestingly, has 3 legs.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Rusty.
So I adopted Rusty about 10 days ago. Unfortunately, he was hit by a car. So he's a little ginger Tom. He was hit by a car, and then unfortunately his owners couldn't afford for his treatment. So he was given over to the RSPCA, and I adopted him, and he's part of my little fluffy family now. He's so cute.